Now,
this is Geek Gab with your hosts, Dornall and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for, let's see, it's Saturday, March 23rd, 2019. Happy future year. Apparently in 2019 was very, very popular choice for future years because I've heard at least 3 different works that had it in it, although I can only remember but one of them at this moment in time. In any case, before we get to our guest, the wonderful, the fantabulous, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, I'm going to have Dornall ask me a question. I don't know if you remember a few episodes ago, like I couldn't even concentrate on the show because my headspace was in an entirely different place. I just watched like a video the night before and it was roaming around in my brain. I was thinking about it. I could barely concentrate on the show. So Dornall in like half a second is going to ask me, so where is your headspace today, DW?
hey, DW, where's your headspace today?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's a surprise question, but it's a welcome question. So last night I watched 2 documentaries, one on breaking or breakdancing from the point of view of the Bronx, the South Bronx where it started, and the other about the beginnings of rap or hip hop, and it was focusing on Brooklyn, where that started. And so I spent like 3-4 hours last night watching these documentaries. And the next question you're going to want to have been asking is this all for the Great Big Secret Project? And the answer is yes. Both of these were research for the Great Big Secret Project. Took a bunch of notes on them. I had a lot of fun. It was really, really cool to see, like, okay, so I've gone really back in time, and I thought that like Africa Bambaataa and all these others were like the originators of rap, and it turns out that like a decade before them, there were a bunch of other people over in Brooklyn doing it. So yeah, that's where my headspace is at today. It's roaming around the edges of really, really old school hip hop in the 60s and 70s.
I love that stuff, and I know that your big project is essentially science fiction, but Berlin and Brooklyn are 2 very, very different places. So I don't think you've got that much artistic license.
Maybe it was the wall they put up in Brooklyn that just confused me.
Yeah, the Brooklyn Wall. I remember when that came down. I was in middle school.
Yeah, that was a momentous occasion in modern politics, the fall of the Brooklyn Wall.
Why don't you just hit me up on Twitter, twitter.com/Dornall. Send me a DM because I'm selling pieces of the Brooklyn Wall, for the mementos of the occasion. I'll get you my PayPal and everything.
So usually we do something like, "Hey, how was your week, Dornall?"
Well, yeah, I mean, my week's good. I work for a living and I game as a hobby, and it's all good. I finally got back on Facebook after a very long hiatus. I had a couple of people I wanted to contact on Facebook, so I did that. And it's terrible. It's even worse than when I left. But I picked the best week to come back because our good friend, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, is moving and shaking, and we had some news in current events.
Wait a minute. Leading Hispanic voice in science fiction,
yeah,
or is he the leading voice in Hispanic science fiction?
I'm actually alt furry leader now.
Alt furry leader. What are you talking about? What the heck is alt furry?
Well,
that's a nice segue. That's impressive.
Yeah. This is what we brought Mr. Del Arroz on for. We wanted to talk to John about alt furry.
I'm not even kidding. I'm not being sarcastic.
I know.
Nice segue.
I'm not being sarcastic either. I am leader of alt furry. I was declared so unanimously by the board of alt furry earlier this week, and yeah, I mean, it's a group of furries, and furries are people who dress up in fursuits and or go on Second Life, and often have a how do we want to put this for a family show?
Well, they wear when you say fursuits in Second Life, like it's like they imagine themselves to be anthropomorphic animals.
Anthropomorphized, yeah, anthropomorphized somewhat.
I would put it this way:
and they're cartoon-like.
It's a cosplay kind of thing, you know.
People should go watch that episode of Chuck with the furry in it, and then they'll know what you're talking about. That's how you put it for a family show. You're like, oh, okay. What about this?
There's this great clip of a few years ago. There's some furry convention and someone, there was an assault or something, right? And there's the anchor is a woman, and she reads the story, and she sort of looks confused for a second, and then she gets word through her earpiece or something. She's like, what is a furry? And she gets word of it, and she completely loses it on air. She's like, tears are streaming down her face laughing.
Yeah, well,
this is no laughing matter.
This is no laughing matter whatsoever. So yeah, no, I know a lot of furries, and alt furry really is because the furry community ended up like every other geek based community, and kind of went off the rails into just this like identity politics garbage, right? That's no fun. It makes, same people that come into every frickin' everything came in and just like said, we can't have fun anymore. We have to do this nonsense.
And so, unusually wise and intelligent person and attractive person wrote a post about that last week.
I don't know who would that be.
If I'm checking, if I have my calendar set up right, I think it was me.
Excellent. Yeah, you beat the drum about this quite a bit. Definitely. But it happened within the furries also. And so some people kind of rebelled against that and just wanted to make things about fun again. And they did so. And they're just really good, really fun people who happen to be into the furry thing. And I got voted their leader. So I guess.
Well, congratulations.
So, okay, does Yakov Merkin, our good friend and science fiction author, does he qualify as a furry?
His book, his Galaxy Ascendant series, is definitely furry fiction. I'm gonna go on record with that for sure.
Furry bait, is that?
Furry bait, that's a good one. He's not a furry, but he's definitely writing furries.
He's also in the chat. I'm not talking about him. I'm not stabbing him in the back behind his back. I'm stabbing him in the back to his face. So.
Oh no, I definitely am aware that he's in the chat, and I'm doing that too.
So we've got a clarification from Mr. Alexander, Kursova magazine. He notes, everybody listening should note, not all furries are into the cosplay, right? And not all furries have fursonas. I've the portmanteau has been analyzed in my brain, and I am terrified that is a word. But he says some are just into the anthro aesthetic.
Well, yeah, that's actually what prompted my question, is because like if Andre Norton or CJ Cherry, I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm sorry.
Cherry, I think, yeah.
If they qualify as like, sort of furry stuff, then obviously Yakov's book would. That's what I'm putting him in good by stabbing him in the back to his face. I'm putting him in good company.
And I'm actually doing it intentionally. I'm writing a book featuring a frog sentient human-like creature and a bunny girl for my next trilogy. So my next novels will actually very intentionally is being written specifically for alt furry.
Can I confess something though?
Mm-hmm.
Now that I know this is a thing, and I've seen like so many weird things around this, every time I edge up to the line and have some kind of anthropomorphic X here, that would like lizardmen or whatever, I get kind of nervous. I'm like, do I really want to put this in? Do I really want to deal with the side effects?
Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. Don't worry about it. Think about it. And I've asked these questions on Twitter all week. Beast from X-Men, a furry, right? Chewbacca, a furry. It's already been done. You don't have to worry about it.
No, I mean, but they are furry. That doesn't make them a furry. They just happen to be furry.
Oh no, they are furries.
They're like furry bait, is what they are. Things that are not furry, but that furries find aesthetically appealing. That's my term. I'm not saying that's a thing. That's just what I think of it as.
I'm just saying we find them aesthetically appealing too.
Well, here's the thing that drives me. The alt furry thing twists my brain because when it was introduced, you know, I view a lot of I would say right-wing Twitter, and back a couple of years ago, the alt-right is this horrible, you know, it's just a bunch of malcontents and everything, and they claim to be right-wing. So when I hear the phrase alt-furry, I think of all these these scumbag, you know, racists or white nationalists or whatnot, and they're like, we don't want any filthy furries in here. And that's what
yeah, for sure.
But it's the opposite. It's the opposite. It's we're furries and we don't want to get we don't want to get destroyed by the leftists, the social justice warriors, that sort of thing. That blows my mind that it's the other way around.
I think evoking that imagery is just funny because obviously, you know, that sort of alt-right, white nationalist, purist sort of stuff would not be a safe place for furries to be, and so it's just funny on that level, and that's great. I mean, I want more laughs on the internet.
Yeah, and that's what happened. That's what happened. If I may digress into the politics for a second, we sort of when the alt-right died, we saw that most of them were they were just their own brand of stupid degenerates, and all the funny people sort of had already left that portion of the internet to the you know, the meth heads and the racists and everything.
Yep.
What I think is funniest about alt furry is is it cuckoo? QQ? How do you pronounce
I would say QQ because I don't know if this is actually true. I'm just making this up, but I assume he spelled out like the QQ, you know, the quick crying sort of tag there, right?
When he started, or when they started tweeting about alt furry, this is why we need alt furry, it was a joke. Like, he was just making that up for a hashtag or for use on Twitter. He was just, you know, making a nonsense thing. Like, I do some nonsense on Twitter too. I talk about things that, you know, aren't real as if they were real. A lot of people do. It's fun. So there was absolutely no such thing as alt furry. And like for a year while he's tweeting this out, there was absolutely no such thing as alt furry. There were literally no actual existing people who belonged to a movement called alt furry. And he was tweeting this out. And then all of a sudden, they start banning alt furry from conventions. They're banning something that literally doesn't exist. And then it actually became something. Like, after they started banning it, people start getting involved. Like, that's some really high-level meme magic, is all I'm saying, is you can literally create something for nothing because your opponents are so psychotic. They create it for you.
Honestly, I tell people this all the time. Like, you just got to stay on message. Whatever it is, just keep the message going, and eventually it just people start repeating it, and that's what a meme is, right?
That's it. And in this case, that's the truth of 1,000 lies. Just stay on message, even if it's completely fabricated.
I think it's better when it's, you know, I mean, you know, you could obviously for sure do that. But I think it's better when there's truth behind it, you know, because if there's truth behind it, I always tell people when I'm telling them, like, when I'm criticizing memes, because I'm a meme critic in addition to my other jobs. And I call them boomer memes or whatever. I always tell them, like, when you try to meme something, like when somebody's making a meme mocking me or something like that, I'm just like, you want to try to be funny. And to be funny, you can't just be off the wall, just say something that doesn't make sense about me. You know, somebody calling me a commie or a leftist or something. It's like, what? That doesn't, you know, that just doesn't play. It doesn't make sense. You have to have some truth to it to evoke that special humor spot, I think.
I do want to ask a question. This is kind of a technical furry question. That Avengers number 17 variant cover you posted earlier today.
The one where they're sitting around eating pizza like boring people.
Yeah. If you look down at Spider-Man's foot, it is literally a hoof. I'm not saying that as figuratively, like they misdrew it. There is the bottom of it where you would put the shoe on. There's the one part that goes up at an angle. There's the joint, and then the leg goes up from there. I'm not making this up. I swear I am not making this up. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, you're right.
I was wondering, is that like a crypto furry code? Is that like a winking nod to furrydom from the artist? Because he's literally got a hoof. Not a foot.
It's like it does look like a horse leg, just like attached to Spider-Man. That's pretty funny. I just think that artists have trouble drawing hands and feet regularly, and I'm going to assume that's completely unintentional because I'm the artist here. I don't believe is that competent.
Okay.
So, and part of that is because if you also look, Spider-Man's holding his pizza backwards.
No, he's not.
He's not?
No, I know. This is astounding. He's not. It's just badly drawn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there you go. Either way, right? And they're also eating all their pizza with forks, which is lame. So,
people are talking, oh yeah, that's like Chicago deep dish. I'm like, no, that is not Chicago deep dish.
No, it's not.
It's Pizza Hut deep dish.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, Peter Parker should know better. He's from New York, but on the other hand, Peter Parker should not be eating a pan pizza.
Very true.
Get that crap out of here.
My favorite kind of pizza is thin crust.
Me too. I like that. I'm into like the gourmet. They'll wood fire it with the put some prosciutto on top or something.
Like you are. Californians are the worst.
I know. We really are.
I bet you put arugula and avocado on that too.
100%. 100%.
You guys, and I mean this wholeheartedly. You guys ruin everything.
California Brita's pizza. That's true.
As soon as we're done here, I'm rolling down to Whole Foods Hot Bar for lunch. So
no, you're in California. You do brunch on the weekend.
Brunch, yeah, that's right.
That's funny. As soon as we were done here, I was planning on getting some pizza, some thin crust pizza.
I tell you what, if you want to talk about pizza, I did my tour of Italy, confirmed why or how Connecticut or New York pizza is the best pizza you can get in the U.S. because the best pie I had in Italy was in Naples. And the Italians who immigrated to the New York or Connecticut area, New Haven pizza's famous, New York pizza's famous, they're all from Naples. Neapolitan pizza is the best pizza, confirmed. And that's why.
Somebody just posted a response to my tweet of that on my Twitter page, and all I'm saying is, all of the other information you've given us aside, I am pretty convinced that this is the best pizza in the world. I have just put the link into the chat, so if you want to see the best pizza in the world, you can click on the link in the audience chat so people can see it in YouTube. So trust me, that is the best pizza in the world. You two can go look at it too, because you will find out what I'm saying.
Really well-made pizza.
There was something I was going to ask about, but I've forgotten it now. Oh, no. I was going to ask John, what is the upcoming movie that you're most excited about, and why is it John Wick 3?
I have not seen John Wick 1 or 2. I'm going to admit that right now.
Oh, my God. We're ending the stream right now. I can't believe...
I don't see that many movies, guys, like at all. I have my time, like when there's like, first, I got little kids. It's like if I see a movie, it's going to be like, Zootopia 3 or whatever, something garbage like that. Otherwise, like my time is like, 9 p.m. to about 10:30 p.m. before, I go to bed and go to work the next morning. So I've got about an hour and a half, which means I have to split a movie between 2 nights if I'm going to do it, which is really rough. And number two, it's like I'd rather spend that time writing books for the most part. So that's what ends up happening. So unless like the only thing I like really make a point to see is like I went to go see They Shall Not Grow Old because that was just kind of a different experience, right? Yeah,
that was excellent.
But I don't do it so much for like just even an action movie at this point. I don't know. I'd rather write one.
I can appreciate that. I think anybody listening in, wondering, where does all my time go? I don't have time to do all the stuff I want. This dude is your favorite Hispanic science fiction author, and you've got a day job, and you've got a family that you take care of.
Yeah, I don't have any other hobbies, guys. I gave them all up to do this, and that's what it comes to. Everybody asks me how I'm so productive because I, just come out with thing after thing after thing after thing after thing. It's like, well, it's because I don't do anything else.
Yeah, you've replaced your hobby with writing. Writing is your hobby now.
This is what I noticed. Like every time you find out about what an author's personal life is like, they have no time. They're always busy, always. If they're a real author, if they're a real writer, if they're writing, they have no other time because they're always doing something. Larry Correia is basically like that, all these other authors. And so I tried to point this out at every possible opportunity. If you want to be a writer, just know that you're going to be busy all the time.
It actually makes me feel terrible, like as a person. And here's why, because like, every time, like, I'm in a group like Pulp Rev or something like that, or in an alt furry group or whatever. And I love all these guys. Like I love Dornall and DW, and you guys are just some of the best guys on the planet. Love Dan Wolfgang and QQ, and a lot of the other guys over there too. And I'm in a lot of these groups, and it's like I feel like I only show up to post my link when I got a new release. And it's just like I don't mean to do that or be like a user like that. It's just like, if I'm not out on marketing mode plugging the new release, I'm not paying attention because I'm in my word processor writing. And it's like I wish I could spend more quality time with the dudes. It's just I just can't do it. It's a sacrifice, I guess. But I feel terrible about it. Just to let you know.
Well, we're happy to have you on to chat about it. Speaking of which, I think it's time we talk about what it is you're actually working on, because you're in marketing mode right now. And I listened to your lunch stream yesterday that you do a couple times a week, and you were sick as a dog through the lunch stream, but you're in full on just go for it marketing mode.
Oh man, poor Rawle, because Rawle Nyanzi has a Kickstarter up also. I just want to mention real quick. And he went on my lunch stream on I think Monday or Tuesday, something like that. And I was so sick at that point, like I couldn't even hold a conversation. And I don't know that actually helped him. And I meant to help him out with his book there too. So I wanted to give him a shout out real quick.
Oh yeah, I listened to that. That was I felt the same way. Yeah, it was too bad for him. Is he around? Yeah. We should have him on right now so you could have a proper conversation with him.
Yeah, it'd be smart. Just shoot the link to him, I guess. Yeah, be happy to. Otherwise, I've got Flying Sparks. Flying Sparks is my my story. I've been now. I always had trouble pitching this because it's really two stories that are concurrently going together. And when I was on Captain Cummings' show the other day, he's like, "It sounds like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, only superheroes." I'm like, "Oh." I guess I should have been pitching it like that for the last year. So yes, it's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, only superheroes. It's kind of at the beginning of it where, they kind of don't know what each other are doing when they're running off. And those secrets lead to complications in their lives. It leads to them not being very effective in their superheroing and all that because they're fretting about their personal lives. And it just causes all sorts of fun hijinks and drama. So that's where Flying Sparks started off. I'm running this as an ongoing series, so I'm introducing villains throughout all of this. I'm introducing new conflicts throughout all of this, and different things going on. And volume 2, I get into the spot where, because I always have fun with this in comics, we've got a mob war going. And some of my favorite comics from the 80s is when just like Spider-Man's hanging out, he's fighting this villain, oh gosh, is Mary Jane going to pay attention to me? And he goes out with Mary Jane. He has trouble with Mary Jane because he's busy. And then, oh my gosh, the Kingpin and the Rose are fighting over mafia turf, and he just like can't do anything, and he has to get involved. And that ends up so much fun, and it complicates the story so much because it adds another dimension to the story where everything just gets loads more dangerous. That I want to do that here. And where it gets unique is because my character Johnny is a villain, or a criminal at least. He ends up being tapped to fight for the mob war. So instead of having just the superhero fighting against it, we have a perspective where the guy is actually kind of forced into it actually on the side of the mob. And so there's a huge dynamic there that's a lot of fun for the characters and is really building into something awesome.
And that's my job, dude. What are you doing? You stole my thing.
I stole your thing? What'd I do?
Yeah, like when I finish talking and everybody's quiet for a little bit, that's my thing. That is not supposed to be anybody else's thing. What's the deal?
I listened to your cadence and how you like do that exciting, the exciting Daddy Warpig. He's so excited. He's on board with this. He's going to get you juiced about this. And what happens is when you get on this roll like this, you just keep going, and then nobody knows when you're actually going to stop, and so you just stop.
That is true. I have abrupt stops. I absolutely do. And everybody's like, wait, he might be pausing. It's possible.
I've made that mistake before. So I hear you talking and I hear a little pause, and then I start to talk and I'm like, oh, he's not done yet.
So I know who did the cover for the first one?
The cover for the first one was done by John Malin, who was on cable over at Marvel Comics for a while. And he did Jawbreaker's Lost Souls for Richard Meyer. So I wanted to bring him in as part of the community because, we're kind of rebelling against the industry here. And that was the story behind that.
Now, what I found out, because I've been doing a lot of comics reading and looking at covers and stuff recently, is actually, and I don't know if you meant this to be, but that is actually an homage to, I believe, a DC Comics cover that I saw where the female superhero is flying up, almost in exactly the same position. It might have been one of the good Captain Marvel covers in Marvel. I can't remember. Because it didn't even occur to me to, keep track of it. I'm like, oh, look, one of my close friends has a cover that is really an homage to this other famous cover. I should keep track of that. It don't matter. I'm not going to be talking about on the show or anything. No.
It's been done a couple times. I've seen it with Supergirl, and so I wanted to evoke that imagery. Yeah, for sure.
By the way, I'm here now.
Rawle, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. And by the way, I'm gonna let you finish, but Flying Sparks is the best new comic to come out this year.
Holy shnikes! I love you. I love you.
That's awesome. I was gonna say, because I didn't read the other Flying Sparks, but I saw on the Kickstarter page you posted a few pages of this one, and you're really playing up the actual mob ties. It doesn't. I didn't see pages of a superhero story. I saw pages of a crime story.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what I figured that from the character perspective is one in like I said, there's two stories really going on. One of them's Johnny's, and he's a criminal. He's a fence, and he just gets, because he's when you're involved in high crimes and then moving those objects, you're going to get involved in some nasty stuff. And he just gets deeper and thrown deeper and deeper and deeper into ugly stuff where he's, kind of forced to kill people. And he didn't like that before, but now he's starting to get used to it. And that's a dangerous spot to be. And on the other front, Metagirl she doesn't have powers. She just has gadgets that her professor's inventing. They're kind of experimental. So she's still pretty new at this. So she's not going out there like taking on these like grade A supervillains and doing these like super battle fights. She's trying to handle the lower street crime where she feels like she's like, in her element. In the first volume, to have a little spoiler, she actually did go up against a big super guy that was beyond her pay grade, and she's got her ass kicked.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So she tries to handle these for the most part. Of course, supervillains happen, and there's some in this book too, and it's not under her control. But that's kind of her MO, I guess. If that makes sense.
And I did notice that, I noticed that Chloe kissed Johnny a lot. That's not a problem. That's actually good. You don't see enough of that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I always thought it was really nice, like in Batman, when him and Catwoman actually get that moment. It's a nice personal moment that gives you the nice feels, and it's pretty hot. So I want to play up that in this, and when you've got a relationship going in reality, unlike like Gamma Male comics, like where you have to worship the woman for 50 issues before you get one kiss. In reality, you have a lot of that going on. So I wanted to reflect that.
Yeah. As I said, perfectly fine.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually want to see what goes on in Volume 2 of Flying Sparks.
Thank you very much.
I dig it. I dig the Rawle's isn't an uncommon response, is it? Like your first comic was pretty popular, as I understand it.
Yeah, it went over really well. I was really nervous because I'm doing another female-centered book, which I've already got, and I know my main core audience really likes to have more of a male-centric I guess plot line or whatnot. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, but and because of that, I upplay the romance a lot. But romance just it makes a human connection that just makes the characters better, and people really like seeing that. So it just had an overwhelmingly positive response. It's good.
I want to say that. I want to take off just a little bit on that. Like, so many people nowadays can't write characters who feel like they're real human people.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's true.
So you were expecting a long rant there, and I just did like a short
I know. I got awkward again. I've seen that a lot too, and I hate to come back to the Gamma thing over and over and over again, but especially in comics, it just feels like there's Gammas they're writing Gamma characters, and so they're all awkwardly shaped characters that you can't relate to, and it kind of just don't feel right and you don't know why. And the reasoning is, it's just people who are not acting like normal people in normal social situations. So it's harder to relate to. Yeah.
Let me toss out a theory here, or just a comment here. I want to make this really short. In an age of ease and prosperity, it used to be, before an age of almost universal ease and prosperity, that people had it tough, and they were forced to do tough things to survive and to work for their family. And they also were told a really, really basic piece of advice, which actually makes a big difference. It is far more transformational than you can ever imagine unless you've done it, which is stand up straight. In those ages, people had to learn what it was like to be more human than just passive. They had to learn what it was like to be more passionate, more driven, whatever. Those things were just forced on them because of their lifestyle. So now we live in a time of ease, and most people don't have that forced on them. And the people who come out normal are those that embrace it. They grow up on a farm, or they choose to go and exercise or take boxing or play sports or whatever. So it's the people who are physically inactive, and also the people who slump all the time, that end up not knowing what it's like to be masculine and manly. And I'm deadly serious, folks. Try this for a couple of weeks, and you will notice that you feel different. Just try standing up straight. When you stand up, when you walk, your carriage is different. The way you walk is different. And you begin feeling stronger, more competent, more commanding. There's a reason why in the military they make the boots stand up straight, because that makes them, it gives them more confidence, it makes them more commanding, it makes them stronger, and that makes a big deal in combat. It seems like a small thing, it seems like a stupid thing, but if you do it, it makes a difference, and these people haven't done it.
I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now. You need a reminder, right? You need a reminder. Just tell yourself or have somebody remind you, hey, sit up straight, because you can just hunch over this keyboard, hunch over this monitor. I do it all day working at the desk. You have to remind yourself.
I was sitting hunched here just now, and I stopped doing it because I got shamed.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm standing up straight too. And also, I have something else to add to that, to what Daddy Warpig said. He pointed out rightly that these people didn't go out and do stuff, but there's another dimension as well that compounds the problem. The fact that they're writing to ideological agendas as well. So
Yeah.
you already have people who generally don't really do much. And you know this because everything they reference is mostly kind of pop culture related. Yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing you also have is the ideological agenda, but we already know that. And the third thing I would say is they're simply not that well read.
Yes.
Yep. 100%. And that's, as a writer, I always tell people, like, if you want to be a good writer, you really want to get to know a lot of different people and different perspectives. Like, the worst thing you could do is get into an insular echo chamber where you only talk to the same people who just regurgitate the same things, because all of your characters will always reflect the exact same things at that point. And to have different characters and to keep being exciting and to be different. And this is really hard as a writer because, you know, we just discussed how we kind of are forced to hole up. To get those different perspectives and really make things more 3D in the writing, you really want to have a breadth on the of just different perspectives.
That's really interesting, and I don't think you were going for this, but I'd like to point out that applies to groups like the Pulp Rev, because everybody's so busy rediscovering, you know, what made all those stories great, that you know, they run the risk too. Y'all run the risk of everybody talking to each other. All of a sudden, you're talking about the same sorts. Everybody's writing the same Conan stories or the same Tarzan stories, that sort of thing.
It doesn't matter what the community is. That can definitely happen all the time, for sure.
And for sure.
Like the anime fans write a lot of the similar stuff. You know, the Pulp Rev guys. You know, everybody's got their own spin on it, but you can also fall into that trap.
So we brought our good friend Rawle back on the show in a surprise guest appearance so he could talk a little bit about his Kickstarter.
Oh, yes. Well, for one, it's actually an Indiegogo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And two, you know, with Shining Tomorrow, I intend to write superhero stories mostly set in an alternate history. Now, I only really know of one other author who did this, and that was Larry Correa. He's a bit of a hero of mine. But Shining Tomorrow is about a civic-minded high school girl fighting a PMC so that she could save her best friend. She, of course, she uses a giant robot to do this.
I like giant robots.
A lot of people do. But you see, another thing I wanted to do with this story was that, one is that, you know, I wanted to make this character kind of the anti-Katniss. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know how what's usually done, or at least what's popular to do in YA, to have the girl rebelling against the system because reasons or something. But here, I actually went in the total opposite direction. She actually wants to be an exemplar of her culture's values.
Oh, so it's more like a traditionalist girl, like, she might be sort of meek or traditionalist or something like that, but she also fights with giant robots. She's not trying to.
Well, yes, and there's something of a tension between those two things. She wants to be this thing, but at the same time, she has to do violence because, it's the only way to beat these bad guys.
I had a question because when you said the anti-Katniss, I actually had a different picture in my mind, and I wonder if you feel the same way. Because I never read the Hunger Games series, but I did watch the first film. And for those of you who missed the Geek Gab where we might have talked about it, I think it was a poor script saved by some great acting. But when I hear the anti-Katniss, the thing that bothered me about Katniss is that she was passive throughout the whole, at least the first book, at least through the Hunger Games, completely passive. She had to make no real decisions. She had to make no judgment calls. Everybody sort of just killed themselves around her, and then she won. And that really bothered me.
Yeah, well, in the case of Irma, my main character, I actually try to make her drive the plot forward, somewhat. Only readers will be able to tell whether I succeeded at that or not. But I at least tried to make her somewhat active, somewhat pushing things forward.
Yeah, and I understand it in a story like the Hunger Games, you don't really want to turn your main character into a murderer, especially a murderer of other kids. But that you have to get to a point where the character has to make a judgment. The character has to make a moral choice and live with those consequences. So I don't know, maybe you don't set it up as a big murder fest, so the consequences aren't that big. But still, making the protagonist completely passive ruined that story for me.
Well, that's understandable. I've always found it more interesting when the hero actually goes forward and does something to set things in motion. And yeah, I would when writing her, I tried to make sure she wasn't passive, not for any ideological reason, but simply because if stuff just kept happening to her, the story would be boring.
And that's sort of implied. I'm going to tie this all together. That's implied by Flying Sparks, which, like I said, I haven't read, but John made it very clear. Her professor makes this gear for her, and she decides, okay, I'm going to use this gear to fight crime. I'm going to see what it's like to be a superhero, right? And she goes out and does it. That's cool. I like that.
Oh yeah,
taking initiative. So she's my co-host on the lunch stream actually laid it out in a very interesting way. I never thought of, but it's actually very accurate. She's a girl next door archetype for real. She's the type of woman that I would inherently be attracted to, and happens to look like my wife. And
I was going to ask about that.
Amazing. My steampunk character also happens to look like my wife. But I like my wife. What can I say? So she's got a model to her where she is a girl next door who's really she tries to be the best friend you could be. She tries to be the best girl she can be. She tries to do right by her man, and she's also trying to be. She's trying to find her way through how to be that, and to also try to pursue being a career girl. Right? She has ambitions where she wants to accomplish things. She's a studious person. She's a hard worker, and she wants to be both, and she finds that it comes into conflict sometimes. And she's out superheroing, and her boyfriend wants her around, and she's not there, and she doesn't really have an excuse. And then she comes back with bruises, and he's like, "What the heck is going on?" I mean, that is an interesting dynamic of modern life, and an interesting dynamic for a character to have, I think, and it's something that I like to see. I think it's a positive. Those are positive archetypes for a woman, and I like to show that.
Oh yeah. Well, it sounds like she has her plate full. A bit similar to my character, to be honest. Oh,
Yeah.
that reminds me. I don't know if y'all saw it in like the Pulp Rev, like in the Twitter, in like the Twitter DMs that we have going, but someone linked an article about the Tolkienic hero. Did any of y'all see that?
I missed that. Tolkienic as in J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yes.
Oh, I think I caught this discussion. Sort of the distinction between the hero of the story and the protagonist in Lord of the Rings. That was it, right?
Well, yeah, something like that, but it goes farther than that. It describes actually the heroic archetype that Tolkien popularized. That here's what that is. The ordinary person who has greatness thrust upon them. In a world where people yearn for power, the Tolkienic hero doesn't. Instead, he's kind of drafted into it, and he has to rise to the occasion. But he would rather not. But the fact that he would rather not is what makes him trustworthy. It's what makes him, responsible enough to wield the power that he has been given. Because we know that he does not seek to keep the power, he does not seek to rule over others. He would rather just farm, or he would rather just go to work, or he would rather just be ordinary.
Yeah, that's a good point. They even spell that out. That's expressed by the Council of Elrond, right? Like, not only does he already have the ring, but he kind of has to. He doesn't want it.
Yeah, that's the point. The point is that the Tolkienic hero, as described in the blog post, is the person who is just an ordinary person who and it comes from a milieu. And it comes from a cultural milieu that is distrustful of power. It pointed out Lord Acton's famous quote, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So but contrast that with sort of the Pulp Rev style, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Pulp Rev style isn't necessarily about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's kind of about Conan being, a force of nature. It's kind of about Tarzan being impossibly strong and fast for just being a man.
I can only speak for myself because I was writing my novel, but I found that the Tolkienic hero thing was interesting because it exactly described what I was trying to do with Irma in my novel.
It just depends. I don't think Pulp Rev says necessarily it has to be this character. I think that's a large type of it. But if you look at I've always been beating the drum for Paul Anderson, who's my hero.
Yes, very good.
Paul Anderson's characters aren't like that. He can keep that aesthetic of the sense of wonder and all the awesome stuff happening around, and he doesn't necessarily have somebody who's a ninja just beating the crap out of centaurs. He's got characters who are people. I would say he's more in line of my style of writing, and then the cool things happen too. But there's room for both. You don't want to have the same character every time, like I said, and that's why my next novel trilogy is going to be more like a Conan or John Carter archetype. So I think you want to vary your characters so that you don't just end up writing the same thing over and over again.
You have an excellent point there. Yeah, you have an excellent point there. If we're going to go farther, we absolutely have to avoid stagnation.
I have a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
The authors, there's a lot of established authors that they just make the money hand over fist. So especially in the romance genre, someone like I think Nora Roberts is a good example. She's got maybe a dozen different character types, and she just puts out the same book 2-3 times a year with the same, picks a few of those dozen character types and mixes up there are roles in the story.
You're probably right in that my advice to you is not a good one to if you want to just make money. as an artist, like I cannot. I mean, it drives me crazy. If look, guys, if I was a smart person, I've obviously built a little corner empire in the publishing world that's doing pretty well for me. But I would be a lot bigger if I just stuck with one series and one genre and one thing and just did it and just stayed on it. People who can do that, God bless them. I think they're amazing, and I read a lot of those books too. But I, as a writer, like if I love my steampunk series like more than anything. But if I sat there and I'd only been writing those steampunk books and I had like a 7 or 8 steampunk series books long at this point, I would be so burnt out. I just wouldn't be able to do this. So money definitely is towards that direction for sure. And if you're that disciplined, that's great. But artistry kind of, you have to have a balance, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, as Larry Correa constantly says, an artist's first duty is to get paid. And as you can see, Larry, even though he's extremely super prolific, I mean, I'm jealous of him, of how much he writes. He writes an awful lot of Monster Hunter International books. You notice that, right?
I'm going to take a shot at him because I know you love this guy, but I did read the first Monster Hunter International, and he's making a lot of money off of writing himself as the main character. That's me.
Yeah, he's joked about that a couple times. So yeah.
Look at this Son of a Black Sword. I honestly think that's a way better series.
Yeah, I think Grim Noir is better.
I'll check that out sometime.
Cool.
Maybe 2020.
That's a great place to be in as an author, though, where you've got like 3 different people arguing over which of your series is better.
Right.
Yeah.
Rough life.
Oh yeah.
We're getting down to killing time. I think I should have used a different phrase there.
Yeah, nobody is going to die on or off stream. Nobody associated with this show.
Other than pizza. We're planning on killing a couple of pizzas.
I plan on doing a lot to that pizza.
John is planning on killing one of his abominations of Southern California pizza, and I'm going to be getting a decent and wholly thin crust pizza. So
I'm probably going to have some cauliflower crust because we don't eat gluten, and probably won't have cheese on it either. Just because the dairy thing's not really in right now.
Now you're killing me, man. You're killing me.
That's weird.
I've lost my appetite.
Stuffed crust forever.
Okay. Do you want to give a final plug for your Indiegogos and such before we go?
Of course. Yeah. Be sure to hand some cash over for Shining Tomorrow. You're definitely gonna like this novel.
Cool.
All right.
Rawle, we added you late, so don't forget to shoot us a link here and in the chat, and I'll make sure it gets in that description for YouTube for anybody.
Yeah, I can't see the chat because I'm doing this from a tablet.
Yeah. I'll get it to me after the show, and everybody listening later, just check out the description for that.
All right, I'm gonna stick the link into the Pulp Rev chat if Pulp Rev DMs if that's okay.
Perfect. What about you, Jon Del Arroz? Leader of Pulp Furry.
Yeah. So Flying Sparks is going to be the best comic of 2018. The other guest already said so. 2019, I guess. Whatever current year is, right?
It's future year, man. We established that at the start of the show.
So, we're at 98 backers. I would love to declare victory on 100 backers right now. So if you, for whatever reason, have not backed it and you're watching right now, I'm pretty sure most of you guys have. But if you haven't, just throw in at the dollar tier and just make it get over the 100 mark so I can start bragging about the 100 backers. And that will make me happy. And that's what you want to do, is make me happy. And this is why we need Alt Furry.
All right, then.
We do need alt furry. I was just about to go back it myself, but I heard dead air, so I'm good. It's been an awesome chat with you guys. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the last minute jumping in, Rawle. And
you're welcome.
Thanks to the chat. We had a lively chat today. Maybe it had about 13 people listening in. Thanks to you guys. Much love.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, this is my job, isn't it? This is when I'm supposed to be talking.
I had a fraction of a second where I debated whether I should explicitly ask you to send us out, Daddy Warpig.
Oh, dang! Now I have to remember, man. It's been so long since I've done one.
Yeah, but you know what? I have botched the ending script every single time I try to do it. So yeah. I would ask you kindly as our host and magnificent voice to please send us off for the week.
Okay, I will give the best. I'm gonna have to go back. I'm not even joking. I'm gonna have to go back to an earlier episode and listen to it to make sure I've got all the awesome stuff I normally put in. All right, first I want to thank our guests, Rawle and Jon Del Arroz. I want to thank everybody who's in the chat here listening live. Awesome. This is Geek Gab. We are available in case you're one of those poor benighted people whose life is so busy and burdened that you can't listen to the show live. We are available on SoundCloud.com. We're available on the Google Play Store, and we are available on the iTunes Store. So you can download us to whatever device you please and listen to the podcast later. But of course, if you want to get the full experience, you should come and listen live, jump in the chat. It's always great. We have really, really cool commentator. We have really, really smart commentators with varied bodies of knowledge, and it's great on the show. So thanks for tuning in, folks. This has been Geek Gab, and we are leaving you for now, and I feel really awful about that, but don't you worry, don't you fret, we will be back.